This is Willow. We're going to let you see what Willow looks like. Isn't she a good-looking dog? And this is Willow's roadmap to success. Basically, the Guardian was asking me, and I'm going to talk about kind of summarizing stuff we went over in the session, but the Guardian was just asking me what she does. She goes to daycare, and I think part of her problem, you see how skinny she is, and the Guardians are really working on trying to add weight, but she's really stressed out, and just like us, when we're really stressed, sometimes that affects our appetite and our weight. She's a herding breed, so that also causes some issues. So basically, she gets stressed out seeing all the kids at daycare that's next to the doggy daycare that she goes to. So I taught her the focus exercise, which we have in the video above. But what I would do is I would go into that parking lot, hopefully when it's a little bit nicer than it is now, and then basically be as far away from the entrance to where the kids come in as you can be, where you can get her to sit and take a treat. Those are my two tests. If the dog won't sit or take the treat, they're too worried about whatever it is. In this case, the kids going to daycare. So what I would do is, let's come over here and turn her around. So let's say the daycare is over there. So we have her sitting and we're watching kids get out, maybe parents are getting out of the car and they're walking, the daycare door is there. So they're walking in this direction. So what I would do is just, when she sits and she's sitting, so we know she's not freaked out. And then she sees the little kids, she stares at them. Well, then I can say, as soon as she looks at them, I might give her a second. Then if she doesn't, I say, focus, focus. So what we're eventually going to do is program her. So when I see a kid, we give her 1 second. And she's just going to stare at the kid, but the kid is far enough away for her to look away. And then if she doesn't look away on her own, then we say, focus, and she looks up at us. And now we've redirected her and got her to look away from the kid. And then when she does, we do the focus and give her the treat. And then we wait for the next person to come in. And so if you rep this enough, what will happen is the dog will look at the kid and realize, if I look at the human, a treat's going to come. So you can program or train Willow to actually look away from the children when they're walking towards. And what you want to do is keep on doing this until she's sitting here, and let's say we're 20 yards away from the entrance to the building where the people are walking, until she starts, as soon as she sees the kid, she looks up at you. You don't have to give the command. And when she does that 5 times in a row at 20 feet, then move to 19 feet and practice it. And you might have to go back to giving the prompt focus and then giving the treat. And you keep on doing it and when she sees the kids at 19 feet, she automatically looks away on her own. And eventually you go 18 feet, 17, you understand what I'm saying. And eventually you get to the point where you're like pretty much holding up the door and she's just looking away from the kids and looking at you. Now, I would recommend getting the blue training leash. So it says training on it. And so if somebody wants to come and talk to you, you can say, I'm sorry, or pet her. Because she's a really good looking dog. That's the problem, is everybody wants to pet her. But she's nervous and she's got stress, the cortisol in her blood, so she's really stressed out. And so she doesn't want anybody to touch her because she doesn't understand that yet. So that creates a problem. So if you use that blue training leash, and people are like, oh, what a good looking dog. Oh, she's in training. Oh, what's she training for? Just that not everybody can pet her. Oh, okay. People will take a step backwards and they'll respect that. But if you tell them anything else, they're just, oh, but I'm good with dogs. She's nervous. Oh, well, dogs are good with me. Why'd your dog bite me? Well, because you didn't listen. So, all right. So now what I did here, and I'm going to recreate kind of what I did, because as you can see, I can pet her and I can interact with her. I can look at her in the eye. I couldn't do any of those things when I first got here. So what I did to start off with is the Guardian, I think, is she a door dasher? Or are you just worried about she might bite me?
Well, I think she's probably a dash.
She might door dash. Okay. So basically, remind me, and I'll talk to you about how we can do that, fix that too. So basically what I did was, she was holding her, and dogs have a fight or flight response. And if we're holding or restraining them, that takes away their ability to flight and often forces them into a fight. Also, dogs have an opposition reflex. If I'm pulling towards something and somebody's pulling me back, that makes me pull towards it more. So we're creating more of a lunging towards the subject. So what I did is I had the Guardian let go of the leash or the collar, and I put my foot up against the door, so I knew the door was going to spring open if she pounded on it. And she was barking at me, but her pupils were not dilated. Her tail wasn't strict up and straight. She wasn't holding her breath. Her body language told me she was a little bit agitated, but she wasn't necessarily aggressive. But she did have a lot of this, very efficient movements and twitchiness. And that's usually an illustration of the cortisol in the dog's blood. So what I did is her energy was like up here, and I just waited outside the screen door. And her energy kind of came down. When it came down to about a 5, then I reached forward and I jiggled the handle. That set her energy back up again. And then I let my hand down and waited for her energy to come back down. When it did on its own, I jiggled. And we're not giving her any commands. So she can't stay in this crazy state of mind forever. And then eventually she calmed down, and then she calmed down enough where I was able to open the door. I threw 3 treats in, and I closed the door. Let her get those treats, and she still was grumbling a little bit. And I waited for her to move back away, and I threw the other 3 treats in. It did about 3 or 4 times. So after a while, she said, like, this guy's giving me like 12 really, really good treats. Then what I did is I opened the door just about that much, and I put it right here so that the dog could smell me, but it couldn't really get a bite on me. I didn't think she was going to, but it's just I'm always precautious. I don't know if it's a word, but I'm always cautious. And so she could sniff me a little bit. Now, I wear the same pants that I try to wear to multiple sessions in a row so it smells like other dogs. And that's a nice distractor for the dog. And so I let her sniff me a little bit more, and then she kind of backed away, and she kind of, her energy settled a little bit more. I came inside, I offered a couple more treats, and she's a lot more relaxed. Then we came in, and I sat down, and I had a copious amount of treats. And at first, I was asking her to sit, and she likes to catch. So if you're a guest watching this, what we'd like you to do is practice asking her to sit. When she sits, throw the treat. And don't go 1, 2, toss. Just toss it in the first one. Try to make it such a good toss. All she has to do is open her mouth. So this allows the guest to interact with her at whatever distance she feels comfortable. We're asking the guest to ask her to do something, which helps the guest achieve a little bit of a leadership skill or a quality. We're asking the dog to sit down, which is something they do when they're more subordinate or more respectful, and puts them at a slight disadvantage. But we're asking the dog to do it, not forcing the dog to do it. And the dog gets to play this little game, and I get to catch treats. Now, she's a little eye contact dominant. So what I would do is I'd toss maybe about 10 or 15 treats, and then I would give the guest one of these things, full of some treats. I'd have the guest just sit here and hang out and play a little hard to get. Don't say, oh, come, and don't pet her, and don't look at her. Ignore her. And have a treat in your hand, and wait for her to come over to you. Willow, come. So I'll show you kind of with this. So I have a treat in my hand. So now she's coming to me. You always want to try to get the dog to come to you versus you going to a fearful or insecure dog. So now I say sit, and I let her lick it off my hand, and I'm not petting her, but I'm holding my hand and just leaving it like that. So she came back and licked it a second time, and I'm not petting her. The main thing is to ignore the dog, pay no attention, and let her come to you, sniff you as much as she wants, and then walk away. Now, if she's staying pretty far away, you can do little tricks like this. Maybe just drop a treat at your feet, let her come and get it, and walk away. And if she does this and she's got one of her feet like she looks like she's stealing base, that's an indication I don't feel comfortable. So let her walk away. When she does, just drop another treat. She comes over and gets it. You want to get it until she kind of lingers like this. And then after that, so you're going to do the fetch first, the drop when you first come in, then you're going to do a little catch. See, she's a good catcher. Sit. And you can hold it over her head to get her sit, and then catch. Do that for about 10 or 12 treats, and then have a treat in your hand. Just kind of hold it like this. And she comes over and nudges you. Then you can ask her for a sit if she's not sitting. Or if she is, ask her to come over here and then put her back into a sit. Let her lick it off your hand and don't pet her. And so the idea is you're going to help her build up trust in you by you not engaging with her. You're not looking at her. You're not trying to talk to her so she might think you're trying to trick her. You're just, matter of fact, waiting for her to come to you. When she does, then you're rewarding her for doing it. And you might have some guests where they can't even get to the point where you're dropping the treats and she won't come over. Then you might just say, sit, or catch. Come up with a word that means catch. You can say catch if you want. But again, fun command words can really help. So, and keep these visits relatively short. It'd be nice if you have a neighbor that can, or somebody that lives close by, so they can come over, do a little bit of this, and the dog can kind of settle a little bit, and then they can leave. Now, something else they can do is we assigned a dog bed of kawaii. So, kawaii. So the guest could throw some treats onto the dog bed, and we say the word when the dog goes there. So the idea is we're trying to get the guest to give the dog some subtle, small commands. Now, as a guest, you want to avoid big movements. Don't suddenly stand up. That will set her off. Don't try not to cough or sneeze. If somebody has a cold, have them wait. Kawaii, she went to the dog bed on her own. I have to reward that. And so if they are going to get up, Willow, I would go like this, and then I would stand up. So I'm going to precede my movement by giving her a treat or dropping treats. And after a while, there you go. After a while, she starts to associate, this person doesn't try to touch me, they don't try to talk to me, they're not looking at me. And a copious amount of treats get dropped or offered if I hang out with them. Sit. Sit. So we'd like to keep these visits like 15 to 30 minutes maximum, but hopefully on the shorter side. So she just has a little bit of practice around them. Good things happen, and then you can like the person should, when they get up to leave, they should drop one of these and stand up. Drop another one, grab their coat. Drop another one, put one sleeve in the coat. Drop another one, put the other sleeve in the coat. And then, and as you leave, drop one, and then leave. So after 1 or 2 visits, the dog should be warming up to people, to that person specifically. But after you rep this enough, you get to the point where she'll like having people come over because they respect her. And if she sits and does things, she gets attention from them. And eventually they can start petting her. When they start petting her, at first wait for her to kind of come close, and you can kind of just touch her, on the side with your hand a little bit. As long as she seems nice and calm. If she's stiff or if your gut tells you that she's not ready for it, wait. It's better to go slower and make better progress than to have a setback. Okay, so that's kind of my remedies, what I would suggest for you guys. I'd like to have you guys have somebody coming by at least once every other day for the next 2 weeks. If you do it every day, that would be even better. The more you rep it in a shorter period of time, the better you're going to help the dog develop new behavior patterns. And so, again, talk to your neighbors and see if they can come by and help you out, or have some friends that come by, friends you haven't seen in a while. Hey, why don't you come over, drink a beer? Okay, now get up. Now, at first we want to keep it pretty short, then we can start elongating it. But if it's too long for her and she's stressed out, that's going to make her more anxious, and mistakes can potentially happen. So first we want to maybe just, for the next week, try to focus on people who live in the neighbors or people who live really close by. And after you start doing that, you can start making them live visits 20 minutes and 25 minutes and 30 minutes and make them gradually longer and longer. And she's gaining more and more confidence. She feels better about it. And then she can eventually have an hour-long or 2-hour-long guest, and she's comfortable with it. Now, normally I ask sit. Remember, every time you give a treat, put the treat in first and then say the word and only the command word immediately after. Don't say good sit or good girl, just say sit. Now, usually I ask my clients how much exercise does the dog have, and usually I have to tell them to ramp it up. One of her guardians actually works at a daycare, doggy daycare, so she gets a lot of attention, and try to pet her under her chin whenever possible like this. So I think she's probably getting too much exercise, and that's probably contributed to her weight. Dogs sleep 17 hours a day on average. So if the dog is at daycare for 8 hours, that means they're 1 hour deficient in the 7 hours they normally sleep every 24-hour period. So what I'd like the guardian to do is back off and maybe do daycare every day, but half day of daycare. Just do it in the morning. And then she should be tired. You bring her home, she's going to be more relaxed at home. She's got to recharge her batteries. Or if she is going to spend the whole day there, try to incorporate maybe a 15 or 20-minute break sometime in the middle of the day, morning, sometime between when you get there and lunch, or the break that they have midday. And then another break sometime between the break midday and the end of the day when you leave. I think for her, getting her, and preferably in an office or somewhere away from the other dogs. A lot of times at dog daycare is one new dog that just barks the whole time, and the other dogs, that can get on their nerves, just like a crying baby can even get on his own mother's nerves. So we need to have the dog feel more comfortable and relaxed. Okay, so back off on the exercise, but before you're going to have a guest come over, make sure she has an appropriate amount of exercise. Not too much. Remember, we want to find that Goldilocks zone. All right, so we also talked about rules. One of the rules is not allowing the dogs on the furniture. Now we have little dogs, and they are outside, so you guys can actually hear me. They bark, and they do a lot of demand barking and whining and whimpering. Well, they don't really have a lot of rules, and I think the lack of rules has confused all these dogs, and I think that they're all in charge of the humans, and all the dogs are correcting the other dogs, and we have a big dog and little dogs, and that sometimes can be not a great combination. I'm actually dealing with a little bit of that at my home myself. So if you have an unbalanced dog, it can turn out really bad for the small dog. So we want to keep things safe so that they can't get together. But the other dogs also need rules and structure just as much as this dog does. And so I would make it across the board. None of the dogs are allowed in the furniture. It may be the senior dog, but the senior dogs, if they're in hospice, I kind of let them get away with more stuff. But basically, I showed you how to use the dog bed and how to make the dogs go to the dog bed. Have a dog bed for all the dogs. So have a big one for her, and have another one over there. It'd be nice if we can get them all to sleep together. I have one dog that I'm rehabilitating. He doesn't want it. He wants to sleep separate. And I actually pick him up and force him, this is about the only force I do, force him to stay on the dog bed, near the other dogs. And he feels insecure, like he shouldn't be there. And after he tries to slink away. I don't allow him to. I force him to stay there. But after a while, he sleeps and he lays down. And now he's starting to hang out with those other dogs. Sleeping together is a kind of a communal bonding thing. So we don't want to do it if there's going to be a fight, and we don't want to force in that situation. I'm comfortable in that situation, having my dog forced to be there, but that was for a short period of time. Now he's comfortable doing it, and he hangs out with them, and he feels more communal. And so helping the dogs practice being together in a positive way is very important as well. So if he's separate from the other dogs, all the time, she doesn't have that bonding experience. So we need her to have a good experience with them. Normally, I would say I would have them walk together, at least some of the dogs, her with one dog going to walk every day. But right now we have crappy weather. When the weather gets a little bit nicer, I would like to have you walk them every day. Now, when you're walking them, she needs to be a heel position on one side. The little dog should be on the other side and also in a heel position. Whoever's in front is perceived to be the leader. We want them to have a practice at doing something together that they both enjoy. Now, the little dogs don't have as much stamina as her, so exercise her first. And then take her for a walk around the block with one dog, drop the little dog off, grab another little dog, go for a walk around the block. And we have kind of a weird area here, so maybe just walk to the end of the street or whatever. But again, you're getting enough exercise for little dogs, and now you're creating a bonding experience between the two other dogs, or the little dogs and her. And after enough experience, she feels better, more comfortable, and confident about that. So some of the rules we went over: not being allowed in the furniture. Remember to get the letter X, M-A-T-S, X mats. You're probably going to need 6 of them for this room. And so those will keep your place held, so you don't have to worry about blocking it yourself. And that does the work for you. Let me see, what else? Not being allowed, the dogs need to eat in the order of their rank, which we talked about off camera, but the dog needs to wait for permission to eat, and which the guardians already do for her, but the guardian who's feeding her needs to eat something first. And right now, all the dogs are eating simultaneously. What I would do is have them eat one at a time. Now, if we're worried about her going after one of the other dogs, then maybe we'd separate them at some point to make sure that we don't have a casualty for that. And you might just teach the pugs and the little dogs to wait for permission. Sit. So I ask her to sit once. She doesn't do it. She doesn't get the reward that's in my hand. I'm not going to ask multiple times. The more I say it, the less I mean it. And I give her about a minute, and then I'll give her another command. If she does it this time, she'll get a reward. So you might want to feed just the little dogs separately and have her separate, and then eventually have her kind of off to the side after she's gotten used to it, because she's eating the last position because she's the youngest dog. You might want to also get an Omega treat dispensing ball. And I have one that's about the size, it's bigger than a softball, and I put all my dogs' kibble in it, and she's got to nudge it around to get all the food out. So that might be something you have her doing down here while the other dogs are eating upstairs. That helps her earn her food because she feels like she's quasi-hunting it. It takes a while. It'll take her probably 5-10 minutes to get all that food out of there, and it gives you a chance to feed the pugs. Just make sure, again, you're eating something first before you fill out the bowl and bring it down here. Other rules: she shouldn't be allowed to be in the kitchen where we're preparing food or within 7 feet of the humans who are eating food. The humans should stop feeding her people food. If you want to give her carrots and stuff like that, that's people food, that's not off your plate, that's okay. Shouldn't smell like your food. Let me see. I also make the dog sit before I let it in and out the door. I go to the door, I say, sit once. If the dog doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away and I sit down. It's important to sit somewhere nearby, and I wait 1 minute. Then I go back to the door and I command her again, sit. She doesn't sit by 3 seconds, and I walk away this time for 2 minutes. Next time I'll walk away for 4 minutes, 8 minutes, so on. As soon as I tell her to sit, she sits, boom, that door flies open. So after a while, she'll go sit at the door as her way of saying, I'd like to go outside, please. I'd also like the guardians to play a little hard to get. I think that they've been so petting her so many times, especially on demand, that she thinks that it's her, she's in charge around here, as opposed to the humans. So the more that we kind of play a little hard to get and make her earn that affection, the better about it she's going to feel. It gives her a boost of self-esteem. Now, I talked about maintenance. Remember taping up the paper on the windows, the low part, the bottom window, and the first pane. That'll stop the dogs from there looking out and from her looking out, and she's not practicing being a guard dog, which she does a lot of. I'd like the guardians also to practice petting with a purpose. So if she's nudging me for attention, I say sit. And then I pet her under her chin, I say the word sit, and I can pet her as long or short as I want. Now, after a while, she'll start sitting in front of you to prepay, as opposed to nudging or pawing for attention. When she does, make sure we do pet her for that. And use the word paycheck if someone, excuse me, if you suspect someone's petting without a purpose. You come in the room, somebody petting a dog is standing, say paycheck that person to stop petting. Tell the dog to sit. It sits, pet under, or if it's already sitting, ask come and sit over here. It just has to do something to change its state or lay down. And then you pet it. And then you can explain to the person, I did it right, you just missed it. But we'll just do it inadvertently. We won't realize how often we pet without a purpose. Now, we also want to use passive training. Passive training is waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior on its own. So right here, if she were to SIT on her own, sit. I'm pretty good. So I thought she would do that. So she sat and suddenly she's getting attention. So instead of telling the humans to pet me, the humans are telling me to sit or do something, and I get petted for that. I get rewarded. That's petting with a purpose. Passive training is just waiting for her to do it on her own. Every time she brings you the octopus, call it octopi and pet her. Every time she sits, pet her and say sit. Every time she lays down, pet her and say crash. Every time she comes to you, pet her and say come. So every time she does anything unusual, let her know, and then basically you can train her, or she'll start pro-offering those behaviors. Now, we talked about there's a blind dog or a deaf dog upstairs. So we talked about putting a jingle on her. So what I would do is throw the treat away. The dog goes over and gets it, and then I would jingle it. So eventually what we do is we're teaching the dog jingling means move away from the dog and get a treat. Because right now, if that dog comes nearby, she growls at her, but the deaf dog doesn't hear it. Well, she starts hearing the jingle and realize I get up and move away. When I hear the jingle, a treat falls from the sky, kind of like what we did for the dog bed. Eventually, she'll start doing that on her own. Now, for the door, we can do the same sort of thing. I do this with called classical conditioning. So what I do is I actually throw a treat to the top of the landing, and then I would lightly knock on the door. Now, first what I'm doing is I'm throwing the treat first, then I'm providing the knock. Now, when she hears the knock, she's going to race down the door if I do the regular knock. So I just do a very light knock. And I try to light knock right the second the treat goes into her mouth. And then she comes down, and I throw another treat up there. She goes up there and licks it, and I knock again. And I keep doing this. Eventually, I start knocking a little bit harder, a little bit harder. Eventually, I'm knocking pretty hard, and she's still up there getting the treat. Then I go to 2 knocks and 3 knocks. I do this with a doorbell as well. And then eventually what you do is you go knock at the door yourself on the inside, not on the outside. And then if she runs up there, then you throw the treat. So after a while, what will happen is she'll hear her knock at the door, and she'll run up there, and then you go answer the door. And the distance between her and the door will help her feel a little bit more relaxed. It's really intense if she's right next to it. I want her up there so that, and it's kind of a commanding position, not ideal, but if it is a bad person, she can race down the stairs and help you in 2 seconds, and she'd love to do so. But if it's a normal person, she's up there. We got several steps distance, and so it's not as proximate or so intense, and she can actually process it a little bit better. Let me see. I also went over the escalating consequences. Remember to use those to enforce the boundary to keep her out of the kitchen or around you guys when you're eating. Practice the dog bed. Practice the focus exercises we talked about. Follow those steps. The mistake people make with the focus exercises, they stop doing it. The dog starts getting bored. So make sure you really rep the heck out of it for a week. And I would do it with all the dogs. So I always say focus. They all stop and look at you. And so it's really beneficial. A lot of times we have little dogs. We don't train them up as much as we need to. Went to the dog bed on command. I don't have a treat for her. So remember, when she goes to the dog bed on her own, just say the word if you don't have a treat. But if you have one, when she goes there, then throw the treat now to reward her for going there. Is there anything else I forgot?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, now if you have any questions or problems, please let me know. If I don't hear from you, I assume that means everything's going great. So if there are questions, please text me or call me. And we may need to do a follow-up session, do a BAT session where we do it incorporated at daycare. We do what we were talking about with the kids at daycare or with the dogs at daycare. If that's the case, just let me know and we can set something up. But for a lot of my clients, the petting with a purpose and the passive training and adding rules and structure takes care of the problem. Sit. Well, this is Willow, and this is Willow's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.